Welcome back to The Price of Business. I am your host, Kevin Price, talking to you about you and your business. I am really excited. For several months, in fact, we've been working on getting Senator Rand Paul on the program, and I've talked about Senator Paul often on the program. He and I go way back. We were both recruited by Steve Ministeri, who is one of the most relationship-oriented people I've ever met in politics. And I tell you, you become friends with Steve. You become friends with a great guy, former chairman of the Republican Party, and now actively involved in Senator Paul's campaign. And we go way back. And Senator Paul, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, I think I met Steve Ministeri back in 1976 when we were all supporting Reagan against the establishment.
That's exactly right. And I got to know him in 78 and was involved in Students for Reagan, which eventually grew and, merged with the former YAF here in Texas to become YCT, Young Conservatives of Texas, a great organization.
Yep. As you know, you and I were both active about the same time, and I was at Baylor and head of the YCT there.
Yep, that's right. And I headed up Abilene Christian University. And so great walking down memory lane. But, man, I tell you, a lot's happened since then. And your campaign is, I think, extraordinary, and I'm excited about it. And I think it creates an opportunity. I've been a big admirer of Ron Paul, your father, but there was a need, in my opinion, for a bridge of taking the message of liberty to a larger group of people, which, frankly, I think your dad had a difficult time doing, but I think you're doing an extraordinary job. I want to give you props for that.
Well, I think there's always been an overlap between what is libertarian and what is conservative. And, even Ronald Reagan said that the very heart and soul of conservatism is libertarianism. And sometimes I kind of look at it this way, that sort of freedom needs tradition, or that liberty needs virtue, and that we all want to be free, but also those of us who are conservative believe that there are some underpinnings of faith and religion and being a virtuous people that allow a free society to function, and that you need both. And so I try to bridge that gap between what might be pure libertarianism and pure conservatism to say that absolutely I'm for freedom, but I think it's important that in a civilization that you also have faith and that you also have religion undergirding your society.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you're actually here in Houston today, and talk about what you're doing here today at 3:00.
Well, we're having a rally, and if people want to come, they can go to randpaul.com and find out about the event. But, I'm from about an hour away from Houston, and so we're spending the weekend with my parents. My mother's putting on a book party for my wife, Kelly, who has a new book out. Kelly's doing some media events herself, and then actually my sister will be having a book party for her in Houston on Saturday. So a lot of events with family and friends, and a chance to come and meet some of the voters of Houston.
Yes, absolutely. By the way, you have a book too. It's an excellent book, and I've read two of your last four books, and I really like this new one, Taking a Stand, Moving Beyond Partisan Politics to Unite America. Talk about that a little bit. What motivated the book? Obviously, all you guys running for president write books. It's kind of part of the job requirement, but why this particular book?
Well, in some ways, it's a way to get out some of the platform that I'm for, but in another way, it's a way to make an argument of how we win as conservatives, as libertarians, as constitutional conservatives, how we win a general election again. And there's a big debate in the Republican Party about whether we should just dilute what we stand for and become Democrat light, or whether we can stand on principle but still attract new people. And I think you can. I've tried to take the liberty message not only to Liberty College, Jerry Falwell's college, but I've also taken it to Berkeley. I've tried to take it to the suburbs, but I've also taken it to the south side of Chicago and to Detroit, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Ferguson, to let people know that big government's not only bad for business, big government's hard on people who live in poverty, and that big government and the criminal justice system often treats people unfairly who are trapped in poverty. And I think the message is starting to resonate. There can be a liberty message that can be taken to people of all walks of life.
Yeah, no question about it. I think a lot of people in the conservative, I kind of have my own. I created my own. I think it's my own cliche. You might like it, but there's this cliche. A conservative is a liberal that's been mugged. Well, I'm beginning to think that a libertarian is a conservative who kind of realizes who's doing the mugging. And and I think the government is behind a lot of unnecessary force. You look at the United States, and we like to claim how free we are and how liberty-based we are. We have 5% of the world population and 1/4 of the world's prison population. That to me is really disconcerting.
Yeah, and I think the fact that a lot of the people that we've ended up incarcerating through the war on drugs have been nonviolent kids who have made mistakes. And I don't condone the use of drugs and think that it is bad for you. But at the same time, I think that some of these kids will grow up and will have a better chance, particularly if we don't have them locked in prison for a long time or trapped in a felony conviction that when they get out of prison, they can't get a job. And so they either go back into drugs or other criminal behavior. And, most of us, our faith believes in redemption. I think also that the law should have a second chance for people. Also think you have a lot more room in prison for the violent criminals if you'll have a different pathway for the nonviolent drug problems.
Yeah, I'm afraid the way prisons are dealt with in this country is just another industry. And, and apparently is a growth industry when you look at us compared to other parts of the world. And instead, it should be a vehicle for solving problems, don't you think?
Yeah, and I think what happens is some people get, trapped in this thing that an ordinary citizen would be fine. Like, what I found in visiting Ferguson is that, there's a lot of unhappiness in a lot of our big cities. But in Ferguson, a third of the city's budget was these civil fines. And you or I might get mad at a $100 ticket or a $200 ticket or a $300 ticket. But if you're poor, this stuff adds up. And then we sometimes put people in jail for failure to pay civil fines. But some of these people just can't do it. Like, I'll give you an example. This idiot was on top of a building somewhere drinking and yelling and screaming. So they arrested him for trespassing and disorderly conduct. All appropriate. I have no problem with that. But his fine was $3,600. If you're an idiot that drinks and stands on top of abandoned buildings, you don't have $3,600. But we end up putting him in jail. So he's in jail for a couple of months, and that's just a waste of resources. Make him get a job, but putting somebody in jail for a couple of months for that is not a good idea.
Yeah, these races for presidents, they're really like marathons. They're not sprints. There's a long way to go. Where are you in your campaign? Are you where you want to be? And what are your expectations going forward?
I think one of the best metrics right now for how we think we're doing is that when you poll me against Clinton, we're actually leading Hillary Clinton in 5 states that President Obama won. Leading in Pennsylvania. We haven't won Pennsylvania since the 80s. So I think those are really good signs that we can attract independents. In the Republican seat, sometimes we've been first in national polls. Sometimes we've been first in early state primary polls. But almost always we've been in the top tier of any poll. And in a 15-way race, having a committed constituency is good. And, I've been one of probably the only candidate that was willing to stand for 10 and a half hours for people's right to be left alone as far as privacy goes, as far as the NSA goes. And I think that's attracted a lot of young people. Over 80% of young people think it's wrong for President Obama to be collecting all of our phone records. And so that's brought to us a certain crowd of libertarian-leaning young people that I think gives us a staying presence. We still have to win, but it gives us a place to build from.
Yeah, I think that I got to tell you, what you do is so important. And when I look at video from C-SPAN of various candidates in various forums, and demographically, the GOP is in serious trouble. I think as a brand, the GOP is in serious trouble. And demographically, time is not on the GOP side without people like yourself who can bridge that generation gap. And you do it not only with a message that resonates with young people who have been so incredibly hit by regulations and taxations themselves, and they get it. And I think in a way that younger generations or earlier generations didn't get, because it's been so tactical, but you get it because there's an authenticity about you that frankly isn't there with a lot of these politicians who don't realize that government really is the problem.
The other thing we've been doing is reaching out to let people know who live in poverty and who are jobless that we have a plan. And basically my plan is to leave taxes in the big cities and not send it to Washington. So for Detroit, I'd leave over $1 billion in tax money that would have gone to Washington. I just leave it in the hands of those who earned it in Detroit. And I do this for 10 years. And this way, we actually have a plan for helping people. But in order to be for a plan like this, you have to be for reducing the size and scope of government in Washington and be for tax cuts. The problem in Washington is almost all of the Republicans who are in charge of tax policy up here, the best that they offer is revenue-neutral tax reform. And I tell people, if that's what we're for, I'm going home. You know, just shifting the burden from one set of group of people to another and saying the net effect will be that everybody's taxes will be about the same. I think when we were last had a leader like Reagan who definitively was for reducing taxes and reducing the size and scope of government, I think that's the last time we really had great leadership.
Yeah.
And even then, I don't think it was fully taken to those who live in poverty to say, we're going to help your city by leaving more money in your city.
Yeah, it really does seems like if we focus on disparity, we have more of it. And if we focus on opportunity, we create more of it. And I much prefer talking about opportunity than the gap.
Well, we're looking forward to coming down there. They've called my vote, and so I'm heading into the Senate floor, but thanks for having me, Kevin. I'd love to do it again.
Yep, I loved it too. And by the way, make sure you check out the Senator's book, and I think it's a phenomenal book. And also check this rally out this afternoon, the Stand With Rand rally, and I'll give more information about that here shortly. But thanks so much, Senator Paul.
Thank you, Kevin.
All right, when we come back, much more for you. I do want to remind you, best content here shows up over there at usdatareview.com, and this is The Price of Business.